Mike Crapo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Maya, this question's for you, but Barry, I'd also like you to weigh in on it. In your presentation, you indicated, at least in the short term, that we should be focusing on balancing economic recovery as well as focusing on fiscal reform and consolidation. And if I understood your testimony correctly, you indicated that, and by the way, I am not trying to get into the stimulus debate that we're having here in Congress. I'd like to get some advice on some of the parameters. But you indicated that it was your personal opinion that some economic stimulus continue at this point, although there was disagreement on your board with regard to that. In your making that comment, though, you also said that it needed to be the right kind of stimulus. Could you share with us what you consider to be, if stimulus is justified at this point on a continued basis, what do you consider to be the kind of stimulus that is the proper kind of stimulus to utilize?
Well, you really are putting me in the middle of some interesting discussions. That's one of the great things about running and working with a bipartisan board of economists and experts on this, because we have these very rich discussions about how you figure this out. So I will share with you a lot of the wisdom that I have gotten from the discussions with our board. But the key with stimulus is that it has to have high bang for the buck, and it has to be credible. One of the problems that we've had in the political arena, and this is understandable, is that stimulus regularly gets designed for political reasons as much as economic reasons. You take your favorite program that you wanted to have anyhow, and you relabel it stimulus. And if you do that, it undermines the economic arguments for stimulus in the future. So I look at where we are with the economy, and it's the unknown. It's sort of like where we were a couple years ago, but not nearly as bad. We still don't know how bad things are. My personal feeling is I would rather pay some insurance to try to keep us from going back into a recession or having slow growth, which I only believe will work if it's partnered with a credible fiscal consolidation plan. I've read a lot of literature on which areas of stimulus work the most, and I would go to CBO and the other documents that tell you what has the highest bang for the buck. And it's directing spending programs, people who are most likely to spend it, so it's unemployed, it's food stamps, aid to state and local governments, which are cash-strapped on their own. Certain kind of tax cuts, a payroll tax cut is something that has high bang for buck. Things that have slower spend-outs, like infrastructure spending, is probably not going to do the trick. And I would just go to the CBO list, and I would put together an economically crafted package, because as soon as it becomes politicized, it really hurts the ability to get it done. But again, I just have to stress, none of this will work if we keep ourselves on this unsustainable debt trajectory, because markets are going to push up interest rates sooner or later. The warnings are coming just so quickly, you cannot afford to ignore them. That's going to undermine everything that we could possibly do with any stimulus measures. And the only way to keep that situation from occurring is to reassure them enough by committing and developing that plan immediately and phasing it in to be partnered with whatever stimulus measures we do or do not take right now.
Thank you. Barry?
Because of my experience in Europe, I was just invited back by the Germans to be a speaker at a conference. I think the title of the conference was "The End of the Euro?" ? Because I know them, this was just before the G20 meeting in Toronto, and they were busy at the German Bundesbank and Treasury preparing for that. And there was quite a bit of discussion on the stimulus, and in particular the last point that Maya made. For the last 5 years, I've been paid in euros, but buy in dollars, so I watch that exchange rate virtually every day. And 6 months ago, at $1.50 or something, oh, that was a nice place to be. Now, the Greek situation actually occurred in October, but nothing happened from the Germans, and the Germans are the one to watch in this, until maybe January or February, when they finally began to come in, only after the euro dropped to $1.25. Then they figured, now their exports, their Airbus, everything else is much more competitive. Now they'll take some actions to try and rectify what the Greece situation is. But they are very sensitive to the timing of the stimulus or the end of the stimulus, even though the European economy isn't performing nearly as well as the U.S. one now. My point is to highlight what the Germans are doing and to echo what Maya said. The important thing for this commission, I think, isn't 2010, isn't 2011, perhaps isn't even 2012. But what the Germans were saying, and I think is critically important, is to put the U.S. on a path of debt sustainability. There are legitimate issues of whether the U.S. needs an extra jolt of stimulus. There are legitimate issues, as Maya said, about what to spend the money on. But there are incredibly even more legitimate and important issues at getting the U.S. on a path towards debt sustainability. And to do that consistently with the stimulus.